what would you say would be one of the biggest benefits to having conferences?
Doing conferences
Doing
as a speaker?
conferences.
Yeah. Well, you get all of your decision makers in one place. So if you're speaking to, let's say, educators in general, so teachers, counselors, people in education, I mean, they're from multiple schools, they're from multiple states, multiple districts, because when else can you get in front of all of these people at one time?
How many have you done, and what have you seen from it as an example of that?
When I first started my career, I did a lot of conferences. They were actually the way that I could get booked with very little social proof, because at a conference, you are the social proof. They got to see you, right? So if you're a new speaker, for sure, you definitely should take advantage of conferences. I did one called the CATA Conference on the West Coast in California, and I booked 20 plus gigs that year from that one speaking engagement. We put together this little raffle where we had teachers and educators and people from the crowd come and fill out their information, put a slip in the bowl, and then we were going to pull somebody out and give them a half off assembly, right? And so we had a lot of people sign up, hundreds of people sign up. And I was like, oh my gosh, I wish I could go to all of these schools. And then we thought, well, why don't we call them all and tell them that they all won? And we'll give everybody a half off discount because they're all in California. It was drivable. I was living in California at the time. So we're like, we'll call them all. So we just called them all, man. And within the next few months, we'd booked over 20 schools.
What would be kind of your advice or your approach specifically on when to do like a free conference or like a low paying conference?
Yeah. I think you do the free conference when you're confident that it's going to lead to more high paying clients, not just more work for you. So if I go to a conference and there's maybe 10 schools there and they're like, Jared, we don't have, the money to pay you, but there's going to be 10 different schools here, but it's in, let's say, Ohio or something. It's not a state where I speak in a lot and I have a lot of references. I've spoke there before, but it's not one of my main states. I would look at that gig and I'd say I would give that to somebody that I know that lives around there that could go for free, and that would really be a good deal for them because I don't want to be going back and forth, right? And I don't want to establish or reestablish myself in an area that I'm not visiting frequently. So I would really just look at the circumstances. If that was the same conference, but in California, where I have a lot of work already, where I'm already going and I could call a lot of schools and always fill up a tour anytime I come in town, then I'd be like, okay, I'll do any free conference in California that has multiple schools there because I'm going to block book anyways. I'm going to book schools around that conference. I'm still going to make money to go. It's easy for me to do that. That's the circumstance. If you're a new speaker, you need to be taking any gig possible. If I was a new speaker, I'd be filling out proposals every day. I mean, taking maybe 30 minutes to an hour a day to just submit proposals and use the SpeakHive database to do that because it's already centralized for you, easy to find. Just submit as many proposals as possible and start going to conferences.
What would be some of the key points that I need to have in a row in order to give the best speech that I can?
The first thing I would do is research of the conference. Understand everybody else's message, what people are saying, what they're talking about, what the overall theme of the conference is. So that way, number two, you can craft a unique keynote for that specific conference. The reason why you want to do that is so that way you will generate leads. And that's going to lead me to the point number three, which is you have to create a lead capture or a lead magnet. So you're going to put a QR code up on the screen at the end of your presentation with a call to action for people to reach out to you. But you don't want to be just like everybody else and say, hey, scan that QR code if you want to book me. No. Scan the QR code if you want a blueprint on how we do what we do. So we build student movements in schools and shift the culture. Scan that QR code, you get the culture shift blueprint, how we do what we do in our top student movements. That's going to get people to scan the QR code much more than, hey, scan that if you want to work with me. So my program is written as a sales pitch in disguise. They don't know that it's a sales pitch. The entire time what I'm doing is I'm showing them how amazing it is to work with us. I'm showing them what we would call Maui, the destination, the promised land, paradise, what it looks like when these schools have went through the entire process and created movements that shift the culture of their school, and how amazing of a community that built. And I'm showing them that footage, like the victory lap of all of these stories that we've accumulated over the years on tour, and showing them what it looks like to work with us. And they're thinking, wow, I really want that. And then at the very end, when it's come to call to action, it's not like, hey, book this call, because they know that's going to be expensive. I just showed them how amazing it was. It's like if somebody just showed you a video of Maui, right? And they're like, hey, book this call and book your trip today. You know it's going to be expensive. So you're just like, that looked crazy expensive. I'm not even going to book that call. So some people just talk themselves out of it. But if you put something up on the screen that says, hey, scan this QR code and we'll show you what other people did to make this happen. We'll give you a blueprint on how you could even do it for yourself. So the people that were not going to book the call because they thought it was too expensive are like, I might as well, scan that and get the blueprint and see if I could do it myself. And it's just like everything else in life. You can tell people how to do something, but at the end of the day, they're going to call you and want you to do it. If you're the expert, which you already positioned yourself as the expert during your keynote. So they're going to want to do that. And so they'll book the call anyways because they'll get a free strategy call. It's free. It is free. They'll get an email from us after they scan the QR code, follow up with them that says, hey, if you want to book a call and go over the blueprint, I'll go over this blueprint with you and I can give you some insight and some data on how we made this happen. And so they get on a call and it becomes a discovery call. They discover our deeper why. They already watched our story. They're emotionally bought in already. Then they get to meet us. Then they get the one-on-one, get to have the call and the experience. And after that, they're just sold. They're like, all right, we don't have the money. We may not have enough to pay full price, but how can we make this happen? And that's when you get creative. That's when we do the block booking. That's when we work with grant writers. That's when we work with nonprofits, community champions, and we just figure out a way to find the funds. So before we go, just to recap on that, number one, you do your research so that way you can align your message with the audience. Number two, you create a keynote curated to that audience to make sure that it actually lands emotionally. And then number three, you set up a call to action. You have a good follow-up process. You get on those sales calls and you pitch and then you block book. That's what you do. If you have any questions about that, of course, reach out to us on Skool. You can comment in the community. With that being said, I'll see you in the next video.